Today we're going to talk about 45 jutsus that are extremely powerful in the Naruto universe, and they were only used once in the manga. And yes, you heard it correctly, in the manga, not in filler stuff in the anime or light novels or whatnot. Just manga stuff, things that we've seen once there. Starting off with number 1, the Temple of Nirvana. This is Kabuto's genjutsu that he used in the Chunin exams arena to make everybody sleep, essentially. Only a few jonins and other ninjas were able to break out of the genjutsu, and Kabuto essentially subdued thousands of people at once so that they wouldn't make a ruckus when the invasion of the Leaf Village started. All those feathers falling down and everybody starts to fall asleep. It's a powerful jutsu. I mean, it can be broken easily if you know what you're doing, but still, it can be very effective for what Kabuto was doing. Number 2, the Toad Stomach Bind Jiraiya uses against Kisame and Itachi. A powerful ability that, according to Jiraiya, nobody's escaped before. The walls of the stomach are too thick for you to pierce through, and Itachi had to use Amaterasu to flee that place. Jiraiya does use a couple of similar things to the Stomach Bind in the future, but the Stomach Bind is a jutsu that requires you to be in an enclosed space so that you can summon the stomach all around you and essentially trap your enemies where they are. The stomach walls can also attack your enemies. It's not just a trap, like, it's a powerful ability. Number 3, the Dance of the Seedling Fern. This is Kimimara's ultimate jutsu, the one he uses to create the massive forest of large bones that almost killed Lee and Gaara. The bones occupy that entire clearing in the middle of the forest that Gaara and Kimimaro were fighting on, and it was just at a massive scale. If Gaara didn't have the ability to fly, he would have been killed with Rock Lee. And that's not the only power of that jutsu. Obviously, it's already strong because several freaking bones coming out of the ground trying to pierce you is no joke, but Kimimaro can also move freely between those bones, which is what he did to try and pierce Gaara while he fled and flew away, but he died in the process because he was very sick. But if it wasn't for that, Gaara would also have died, even though he could fly. Imagine a healthy Kimimaro using that jutsu. It would be a nightmare to deal with. Essentially controlling the entire battlefield to your advantage. If you don't die to the spikes themselves, Kimimaro is just gonna swoop in and get you. Number 4 is going to be Deidara's C3 explosion. He used that in the fight against Gaara, and he essentially tossed a massive explosive on top of the Sand Village. Luckily for the Sand Village, they are located in the desert, which allowed Gaara to use a massive amount of sand to block the explosion, but we see that the size of that blow is essentially a Bijudama, man. It's no joke whatsoever. Deidara was casually pulling off those crazy explosions. If that hit the Sand Village, it would have killed a massive amount of people, and it would have destroyed the place, almost like Pain's Shinra Tensei destroyed the Leaf Village. Number 5, Itachi's Ephemeral Genjutsu. One of the most powerful and underrated genjutsus in the verse. Yes, it's not something extremely potent like Tsukuyomi, but it's very effective. Itachi doesn't have to make eye contact, he just has to point his finger to the target, and the target is under a genjutsu. You have to be broken out by somebody else, because breaking out of Itachi's genjutsu on your volition is going to be extremely difficult, given his prowess. And we saw how well Itachi could manipulate Naruto inside that world of genjutsu cast by Ephemeral. Yes, it's not Tsukuyomi, not something instant that Itachi can completely control the time and space, but it would have rendered Naruto completely useless during the fights, if not for Chio and Sakura awakening him. And because it doesn't require eye contact, Itachi just has to point a finger without even weaving hand signs. It's completely busted, and Itachi should have definitely used that more if he had more fights in the series, which he doesn't have a whole lot. So yeah, it makes sense why he only used that one time. Number 6, Sasori's 100 Puppets. This is a pretty iconic jutsu that Sasori uses against Chio and Sakura. He just friggin' pulls 100 puppets out of his rear end and controls them not through his hands, which is usually how a puppet master controls the puppets, by using the chakra threads extending from their fingers, but he uses that weird hole on his chest that sprouts out 100 threads that can control a puppet each. It's a pretty insane jutsu that, according to Sasori, dominated an entire country once. However, that jutsu was countered by jutsu number 7 on this list, Chiyo's Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets, which is actually a pretty insane jutsu. Those 10 puppets were no joke. They were said to be the 10 strongest puppets ever created. I would argue that the third Kazekage puppet is stronger than those, but still, those 10 put together with Sakura were able to pretty much stalemate 100 puppets used by Sasori. And yes, Chiyo had more control over individual puppets in her 10 puppets, because controlling 100 puppets at the same time are not going to give Sasori as much concentration per individual puppet. But we saw that the jutsus and abilities that those 10 puppets had were pretty insane. They could suck other puppets into that vacuum jutsu, they used chakra weapons, all types of weird combinations, and they were extremely powerful. Sasori said that they were able to conquer a castle one day, and then he says, oh no, my 100 puppets conquered country, so like, I'm better than you, Chiyo. I don't know, man, he lost the fight. I mean, he got himself, killed on purpose, but anyways. Number 8 is going to be Deidara's C2 Dragon, another very underrated Deidara ability, like almost everything he does, because he's one of the most underrated characters in the series. The C2 Dragon is one of those massive creations from Deidara's clay that he can use to fly, but the thing is, that thing spits bombs that are extremely powerful. If you see the scale of the bombs Deidara spits with the C2 Dragon compared to the forest and the C2 Dragon itself, which is already a pretty damn large beast, they are massive explosions. And the thing allows you to fly at the same time while bombarding your targets on the ground. It's some crazy power. Number 9 is gonna be Deidara's C0 explosion, which is pretty much the size of a 10 tails Bijudama, one of the greatest feats before the war arc in terms of raw strength. Yes, it requires Deidara to sacrifice his life to do that, but still, it's pretty damn strong, if I may say so myself. And I'm not gonna put C4 here because Deidara actually uses C4 2 times in the fight against Sasuke. But I would even argue that C4 is Deidara's most powerful ability. Number 10, the Frog Song. Jiraiya's most powerful jutsu, I would say. I mean, technically, this is not a Jiraiya jutsu. It's from his summons, but it's Jiraiya that uses it against Pain when he summons or helping him out in the fight. And it's one of the most powerful genjutsus in the series. Definitely the most powerful non-ocular genjutsu. It puts all 3 paths of Pain under that genjutsu. They can't do anything else. Yes, it does take some time for Ma and Pa to sync their singing so that they can actually throw the genjutsu properly. But if it catches you, it's pretty much GG. It affects several different targets if the frogs want to. And yeah, Ma and Pa do use something similar in the fight between Naruto and Pain when they paralyze a couple of summons by blasting some sound waves at them, but it's not the frog genjutsu properly. It's just more of a stun attack than the genjutsu that completely paralyzes you. Number 11, Kirin, one of the coolest jutsus ever used, maybe the coolest jutsu in the series. Also an extremely clever and powerful ability that Sasuke implements by using the force of the storm clouds themselves without having to spend that much chakra at all. An ability that's impossible to dodge, and Itachi only did so because the activation of the Susanoo is instantaneous and he had the Yara mirror. Certainly the second strongest lightning style jutsu in the series, and don't worry, I'm gonna get to number 1 on this list as well. And yes, I know a lot of you are saying, Kirin was used more than once, dude, what are you talking about? No, not in the manga. First of all, we don't count Burrito here because it's not canon, so nothing that happens there matters. Second, the Kirin that was used in the Naruto vs Sasuke fight, their final battle in the Valley of the End, was added in the anime. Yes, it was a very cool addition, but it's not in the manga, so I'm not gonna count that here. Therefore, Kirin was only used once in the fight between Sasuke and Itachi. Number 12 is going to be Suigetsu's Water Avatar. People kind of overlook that, but when Team Taka was fighting against Killer Bee and he went full Tail Beast, Suigetsu used a massive water avatar thingy to try and halt the 8 Tails, and he was doing fine taijutsu-wise against the Tail Beast with that water avatar. Yes, obviously there was a massive lake where they were fighting against the 8 Tails, and even Bee acknowledges that Suigetsu had the terrain advantage there, but still, like, he was competing against the second strongest Tail Beast, dude. It's no joke. So much so that Bee had to resort to a massive Bijudama to take care of Suigetsu, and he survived that. Pretty damn powerful jutsu. Number 13 is going to be Nagato's Ethereal Dragon. This jutsu is absolutely busted and Nagato only uses it once. It's in the flashback when Hanzo and Danzo trap him and Yahiko essentially offs himself so that Konan doesn't have to die. Nagato goes insane. He summons the Geromazo, the statue pierces him with all those rods, and then Nagato sprouts that ethereal dragon that literally drags the souls of the entire army out of their bodies, killing them instantly. There's absolutely no way you can dodge that. It's an ethereal dragon. I think that if you even raise a massive barrier or something, it could just pass through it like Obito does phasing through stuff. Hanzo only survived because he used a teleportation jutsu, but that dragon is so OP, it does look like a variant of the human path because it drags the soul out of the body, so that's my headcanon interpretation for the jutsu, but there's not a lot of information about it. And it appears that Nagato has to pierce himself several times with the Geromazo to even use that jutsu effectively, but some people argue that he only had to do that back in the day because there were no bijus inside of the Geromazo powering it up like there were in the war arc, and therefore Obito was able to use the Geromazo in an offensive way more effectively, not having to pierce himself like Nagato did. Still, the ethereal dragon is no joke. It was a cool jutsu to see. Number 14 is gonna be Zetsu's Spore Jutsu, the one he used in the 5 Kage Summit, catching the 5 Kage off guard pretty much, and saving Sasuke by draining their chakra and giving it to Sasuke. He essentially launches spores in the room when he invades the 5 Kage Summit, and the Raikage quote-unquote kills him, but then those spores, they can attach themselves to people and grow whenever they please by draining chakra. Yes, the Kages were able to deal with that jutsu, but they weren't able to detect it beforehand, and that jutsu saved Sasuke. I cannot imagine how powerful this jutsu would have been if the White Zetsu army could have used it during the war arc. I mean, in my headcanon, only White Zetsu Prime was capable of using that jutsu, because if every single White Zetsu in the army was able to, then there was no way the Alliance was going to win the fight whatsoever. And that's also the reason why the jutsu was only used once in the entire series. Number 15 is going to be the Water Prison Shark Dance, Kisame's signature ability and pretty much his most powerful jutsu. He spits an entire orb of water that covers the entire forest in the fight against B and traps everything inside of it. If you try to move away and leave the orb of water, Kisame moves the orb of water with you and it follows you until you draw, or like he catches up to you, because Kisame is the fastest character underwater in the series. And also another jutsu we can even include here is Kisame's fusion with Samehara that he only uses that one time in the fight against B and turns into that weird shark monster. It's a really cool jutsu. Number 16, the self-cursing seal that Danzo uses against Sasuke by touching Sasuke, and then those weird symbols appeared on Sasuke's skin, kind of like a curse mark, and paralyze his movements entirely. Now, imagine how powerful this jutsu is. You can paralyze your opponent just by touching him. Danzo didn't even have to weave hand signs to use the jutsu, and Sasuke was only able to break free out of it because he was able to discharge an immense amount of chakra by his increased hatred and ignite his evolved Susanoo. If that hadn't happened, and if Danzo didn't try to lecture Sasuke before finishing him off, he probably would have won the fight there. Number 17, the reverse force symbol sealing. This is Danzo's final jutsu that he uses to try and take Sasuke and quote-unquote Madara with him in the end of the Sasuke versus Danzo fight. And pretty much everything that's inside that thing gets completely sealed away inside of Danzo's body, and then, you know, he dies. It's a very powerful jutsu. I mean, it is a self-sacrifice jutsu, but still, a strong ability nonetheless. Number 18, the Paper Bomb Ocean. I mean, Konan prepares the jutsu specifically to deal with quote-unquote Madara, I mean Obito, but to deal with his Kamui. A literal ocean of paper bombs with 600 billion of them that will explode for 10 minutes straight, and Obito's limit was 5 minutes of Kamui straight, so like, he was going to die if he didn't have Izanagi there. This jutsu is insanely powerful, yes, it probably requires months of prep time, but nonetheless, like, there aren't a lot of characters that could have survived that. Number 19, Earth Style Opening Earth Rising Excavation. This is a jutsu that Kurotsuchi and her dad Kitsuchi use simultaneously to dig thousands upon thousands of white Zetsus from under the ground in the beginning of the arc. It looks like a volcano gushing out white Zetsus instead of lava. It's a pretty cool jutsu, and it's a massive scale Earth-style attack. Number 20, the third Raikage's one-finger lightning spear, which is said to be one of the most potent offensive abilities in the verse. According to everybody, that finger can pretty much cut through everything. It cut every single tail of the 8 tails, and Naruto was like, okay, I can't get hit by that. But the problem for the Raikage is that that jutsu is his own weakness, because the Raikage was also the most durable guy in the verse. The only thing that could pierce through him was his own jutsu, which is what Naruto used against him to seal the third Raikage's Edo Tensei. Number 21, Tengai Shinsei, or Heaven Conceal. The 2 meteors Madara summons above the 4th division of the Alliance, crushing almost every single one of them, killing about 20,000 people instantly. In one of the greatest flexes in the Naruto-verse, let's be real here. No, Madara did not use this jutsu later on when he was the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. He used Chibaku Tensei and then he tossed his meteors down. Tengai Shinsei consists of summoning out of thin air meteors and just letting them fall. Number 22, Wood Style, Advent of a World Flowering Trees. This is an extremely powerful jutsu that gets kind of overlooked in the wood style category because those massive flowers sprout out pollen that essentially renders anything that breathes it unconscious. It pretty much one-shot the 5 Kage. They were completely knocked out, and if Madara was actually fighting serious, he could have just swooped in and destroyed them when they were all unconscious there. And yeah, that's the strange thing. It's a wood style jutsu, and the only time we see it being used is by Madara, who's not an inherent user of wood style. He just got Hashirama's powers. A great amount of Hashirama's powers, but he's the only one we see using that jutsu nonetheless. Yes, we saw Hashirama using that against Madara in the anime, but that's not in the manga, so we're not counting it here. Number 23 is going to be Kabuto's Sage Art White Extreme Attack. It's the jutsu he uses against Sasuke and Itachi, and he essentially spits a white dragon that blasts into this great flashbang that deafens and blinds you completely. Sasuke and Itachi had a lot of trouble dealing with that, even though they were extremely powerful characters, and Kabuto almost reassigned Itachi's Edo Tensei because of that jutsu, so it was dangerous for them. Number 24 is going to be Kabuto's Inorganic Animation Terrain Control. This jutsu, it's also another one of Kabuto's new abilities, and it's a Sage Mode ability that's extremely powerful because Kabuto gains control over the terrain he is fighting on, and he can essentially, make the terrain attack you. Can you imagine how powerful this is? The ground itself attacking you at will, the terrain shifting to help you during the fight. It's a powerful jutsu that caught Itachi in the Edo Tensei form. Several spikes pierced Itachi as an Edo, and he had to protect Sasuke because he wanted to protect his younger brother, otherwise he would have died to that technique. Number 25, Izanami, a jutsu I dislike vehemently because it's something Kishimoto wrote specifically to get Itachi and Sasuke out of the situation, that fight against Kabuto in an uncreative way that's kind of out of nowhere, but it's a powerful jutsu nonetheless that traps the targets into a cycle that's not going to end until you essentially become a better person. And yeah, we saw in the filler episode in the anime several people using Izanami, but no, this doesn't happen in the manga. Number 26, the Spirit Transformation Technique. This is a jutsu that Dan uses in the arc when Itachi releases the Edo Tensei, and then the Edo Tensei bodies gain control over themselves for a brief amount of time before their souls are pulled back to the Pure Lands, but when that happens, Dan uses the Spirit Transformation Technique and sends his spirit to Tsunade's location, saving her from Madara's attack and also giving her a lot of chakra. You can see how powerful this jutsu is. His instant travel time can be used for so many different things, and also this jutsu was known for being extremely powerful offensively. You could attack people, possessing them during fights, or maybe if you're really far away from somebody, you could do it as well. It can be a powerful offensive jutsu, a powerful support jutsu like we see Dan using with Tsunade. This jutsu is pretty crazy, and Dan, he probably was very powerful when he was alive. I don't know how he died. Number 27, and this one kind of baffles me. It's the Uchiha Flame Formation. Now this jutsu, it comes out of nowhere and it's only used once with no explanation whatsoever. So when Obito is fighting against B, Kakashi, Naruto, and Guy, and he's beginning to sprout the 10 tails out of the Geromazu, the 8 tails, Killer B, fully transformed, he goes and tries to punch the Geromazu, because we have to destroy the thing before it turns into the 10 tails, and then Obito casually hits his hand on the ground and says, Uchiha Flame Formation, and then red flames come out of the ground and protect the Geromazu. And then you're like, okay, sure, it's a protection, whatever, but like, it's the 8 tails attacking the thing. Surely, a simple barrier is not gonna do anything against— no, the 8 tails can't do anything against a casual barrier that Obito threw around the Geromazu. The 8 tails' hands burn, and Obito's like, yeah, I'm fine here, I don't have to worry anymore about the Geromazu being destroyed, because you're not gonna be able to touch it, 8 tails, you're weak, my barrier is strong. Like, this barrier, how powerful is that thing if it's stopping a tail beast? And the crazy thing is, it's listed as a B rank jutsu, which isn't that high. Like, the Rasengan is an A rank jutsu. If this thing is stopping an 8 tails, like, what gives, dude? Why didn't you use that more times? Like, I bet this barrier would have been useful in so many different situations. Maybe it's a KK Genkai thing because it's an Uchiha Flame barrier, but even still, it stopped the 8 tails on its tracks. It's kinda crazy, and not many people really talk about that jutsu. Maybe, and this is my headcanon by the way, but I interpret that jutsu as being a technique that can only be used if you have the Uchiha fan, that really iconic weapon that looks like a guitar that Obito uses and then Madara uses, but still, it's a powerful defensive tool that can make a lot of things happen, and there's gonna be more stuff about this thing in this list later on. But I interpret that this jutsu, the Uchiha Flame Barrier, can only be cast if you have the fan and the protective capabilities of it. And that's why it's never really used again or used before, because we barely even see people wielding the fan. Speaking of which, number 28 is going to be the Uchiha Return. That's literally the name of the jutsu. And it's when Madara uses that very same fan to counter Naruto's mini Bijudama blast like it's another Tuesday. Naruto in KCM2 tries to blitz Madara with a mini Bijudama, using it like a Rasengan, and Madara just raises his fan very casually, absorbs the Bijudama into the fan and says, Uchiha Return, exploding it back at Naruto in a very humiliating fashion. Now, Madara never uses this jutsu again, but it's an extremely powerful ability. As a matter of fact, the fan kind of vanishes from the story. When Madara becomes the 10 tails in Shuriki, he just doesn't have it anymore. And what's implied is that Madara somehow lost it in his fight against Edo Hashirama, but still, we don't even see the fan again at all. Number 29 is going to be the 1,000-arm Buddha statue that Hashirama uses against Madara in their fateful fight in the Valley of the End. In one of the most impressive jutsus ever used in this series, that statue was the size of the Leaf Village. It could pretty much grab the 9 tails like it's grabbing a toy. It's so freaking massive. And obviously an extremely powerful jutsu if it was able to ever so slightly beat Madara's majestic attire Susanoo 9 tails. Some of you may argue that Spiral Zetsu used the same jutsu in the Wark, but his version was definitely not 1,000 arms. It was a much smaller version, therefore that was the only time the 1,000-arm Buddha statue was actually used. Number 30 is going to be the 4 Crimson Ray Formation, the jutsu that the 4 first Hokages used to contain the 10 tails, and they do it effectively. The 10 tails is contained in that barrier, so this jutsu is an extremely powerful ability. And yes, obviously it would be the case because the first 4 Hokage, concentrating pretty much all their might to produce a barrier, would wield an extremely powerful defensive ability. Number 31, the multiplying explosive tags that Tobirama uses against Jubito. So essentially he tosses paper bombs that keep on multiplying and exploding and multiplying and exploding, and they keep going essentially. They weren't quite able to hurt 10 Tails Obito, but still, they destroyed Hashirama's deity gates, which were pretty damn durable and were holding back the 10 tails from moving too much, and Tobirama destroy those. Number 32 is going to be the 6th Crimson Ray formation that was used by 10 tails Obito. And if the 4 Crimson Ray formation used by the 4 first Hokage was pretty damn powerful, the 6th Crimson Ray formation used by Jinchuriki of the 10 tails was obviously even more powerful. So powerful, in fact, that it resisted the blast from Obito's own Bijudamas, and they were massive 10 tails Bijudamas, 4 at the same time, and the barrier tanked it. Obito's plan was to trap the alliance inside of the barrier and then explode everybody within, which would have worked if Naruto and Minato hadn't teleported everybody out of the barrier in time. But still, an extremely powerful ability. Number 33, the Sword of Nunaboko. This is Obito's ultimate attack in his 10 tails Jinchuriki form. It's the Sword of the Sage of Six Paths, and it does have a really cool design, kind of like a DNA strand. Obito says that the sword is pretty much omnipotent, and it can do anything if the user's will allows it. Now, unfortunately for Obito, he was one of the weakest-willed characters, therefore the sword broke when it clashed against Naruto and Sasuke's majestic attire Susanoo, and Obito lost the fight. But, I mean, I guess it's a really powerful jutsu. If Madara, for instance, had used that jutsu in his 10 tails form, I don't think Naruto and Sasuke would have any chance against it. Number 34 is going to be Wind-style Sand Bomb Salvo, and this jutsu is kind of overlooked, but Madara himself complimented the jutsu, so I am putting on this list just because of that fact. And it's the jutsu that Shukaku and Gaara used simultaneously to attack Madara after he was revived by Irene Tensei. The jutsu is able to pierce Madara's body, and he even says that's a good jutsu, but it lacks finishing strength. And as soon as Madara says that, Gaara activates the best property of this jutsu, which is to paralyze you from within, because the purpose of you throwing the salvo of sand using a wind-style barrage to propel the sand further and with more strength is to pierce the target and infiltrate the sand within the target's body so that Gaara can paralyze you by, you know, just sticking the sand into your veins and stuff. And that's why Madara was, you know, pretty much rendered useless for that moment, and then all other tail beasts were able to swoop in and punch Madara like a ping pong ball. He was like tossed from every direction and every possible way. The 10 tail beasts were having a field day punching him, and he was tanking those attacks pretty casually, but still. Pretty powerful jutsu. If Madara said so, I'm gonna put it in this list. Number 35 is gonna be the Night Guy. I think nobody's going to dispute me putting this jutsu here. It exploded Madara's left half. It dealt a lot of damage to the Divine Tree. The explosion was massive. Guy was bending space-time through the sheer speed of the jutsu, and it was a very iconic moment in the Naruto series that Madara thought he was gonna die. Number 36, Madara's Storm-style Inton Raiha. That's the first jutsu he uses in the fight against Naruto and Sasuke, and that weird purple lightning comes out of his hands in those very intricate patterns dashing down towards Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke has to use Amenoteji card to avoid the attack, and Naruto has to use Truth-seeking orbs to avoid it. So, pretty powerful jutsu if I may say so myself. And number 37 is going to be Storm-style Ranton Koga or Lightning Fang, the jutsu that Madara essentially spits a laser beam and cuts through the Truth-seeking orb staff Naruto was holding as though it was a hot knife cutting through butter. We never saw Truth-seeking orbs being cut through so easily as with that jutsu, because that was pretty insane. Naruto was able to dodge that because he had a great reaction time. I mean, that jutsu is listed as light speed in the data books, but like, light speed doesn't really matter at all in the Narutoverse because it's all finicky. But it's a really damn powerful jutsu that, had Madara used more often, he could have killed Naruto and Sasuke kind of casually, because if the jutsu was cutting through Truth-seeking orbs like it was nothing, he could have, you know, cut through Naruto and Sasuke easily. Number 38, the Infinite Tsukuyomi, the final jutsu of Madara's plan, and possibly the strongest jutsu ever cast. An ability so powerful that it puts everybody under the most powerful genjutsu imaginable. I mean, Sasuke was able to protect himself and Team 7 from it, but the jutsu was worldwide and everybody was caught in it. Number 39, the Divine Advent of Trees. Yes, this jutsu was used in a more regular version before, but when Madara uses as his 10 Tails version, it's a divine style jutsu that he essentially casts the jutsu to entrap every single person that was caught under the Infinite Tsukuyomi with those trees and entrap them forever if they weren't released. So another worldwide scale jutsu that 10 Tails Madara used very casually as though it didn't require chakra whatsoever. This was just cracked. Number 40, the reverse harem jutsu that Naruto used against Kaguya, transforming himself instead of women into hot men to distract her, and he was able to land a punch on Kaguya because of it. And we know that Naruto had to practice a lot to master the sexy jutsu and transform himself into women because it requires observation. You have to study what you're going to transform into, so we can only imagine what Naruto had to do to transform himself into dozens of hot males. He had to look at those guys somewhere. He had to at least imagine how they looked like very vividly, or maybe he had a magazine or something. I don't know, man. Naruto was putting in the work for that specific occasion. Number 41, Sage Art, Super Tail Beast Rasenshuriken, which is the 9 massive Rasenshurikens that Naruto tosses against Kaguya. Every Rasenshuriken being imbued with the chakra of a different tail beast. Very nice jutsu, if I may say so myself, because it uses all the tail beast jutsus and chakras, and it's all different colors. It looks great. The 2-page spread the jutsu was used is pretty good, and it's an extremely powerful jutsu. If a single magma Rasenshuriken that was used against Deidara was able to cut through the entire divine tree, all other 8 Rasenshurikens being thrown at the same time are gonna be extremely potent. And yes, there was a magma Rasenshuriken in the middle of those 9, but there were 8 other Rasenshurikens as well that should be pretty much the same level of power as the magma Rasenshuriken, if not more powerful, because there were other Rasenshurikens that were empowered by more powerful tail beasts than the 4 tails, so like powerful stuff. Such a shame it was used against Kaguya, and, you know, one of the worst characters in fiction, so whatever. Number 42, Kamui Shuriken. When Kakashi awakens the dual Mangekyo Sharingan because of Obito's afterlife buff, he gets a Susanoo, and the Susanoo gets Shuriken to throw, which are imbued with the power of Kamui. Pretty cool. But to be honest, I think using just a long distance Kamui like Kakashi usually did would have been more effective because you don't have to throw it, you just have to look at where you want to Kamui and it's gonna Kamui. So like, why throw a shuriken? I guess maybe the area of effect is much larger and you can throw more than one at the same time, because when you're just using long distance Kamui, then Kakashi can only look one place, I suppose. Number 43, Kamui Raikiri. I mean, Kamui is an extremely powerful ability that pretty much negates anything in the verse, so when you imbue your Raikiri with Kamui, it's gonna be extremely powerful. Like, imagine the cutting capacity of a Raikiri imbued with a jutsu that essentially teleports whatever you touch into another dimension. You're gonna cut through literally anything you touch. Number 44, Six Paths Chibaku Tensei. Not a regular Chibaku Tensei, but the Chibaku Tensei used with the moon and sun seals given to Naruto and Sasuke by the Sage of Six Paths to seal Kaguya. That was the jutsu used a long time ago to create the literal moon in the Naruto universe, and Naruto and Sasuke use it again to create another moon, but then in Kaguya's dimension. And it's different from regular Chibaku Tensei because, well, you need the moon and the sun seals to do that, and you need an Ashura and Indra reincarnation and all that kind of stuff. So powerful jutsu, such a shame it was used in the fight against Kaguya. Number 45, the Indra's Arrow, the jutsu Sasuke used against Naruto, his final technique. According to him, the most powerful jutsu he had in his arsenal. He collected the chakra from all 9 tail beasts that he had trapped into a Chibaku Tensei each, and encased the chakra in his Susanoo so that he could literally use the Susanoo as an armor around that chakra, and then he channeled all of the tail beast chakra into one single point, the Indra's Arrow, and shot it against Naruto. An extremely powerful jutsu. And number 46, is gonna be 6 paths Ultra Big Ball Rasenshuriken, which is the jutsu Naruto used to counter Indra's arrow, producing 2 massive Rasenshurikens with his Kurama avatar. And he was pretty damn buffed by a lot of sage energy that a clone of the Nine-Tailed was collecting on the ground. Combined with that, he channeled every single ounce of chakra he had left into those Rasenshurikens and tossed it against the Indra's arrow, which clashed, and the explosion that thing yielded was extremely freaking insane because it destroyed the entire atmosphere. It leveled the final valley, and I mean, it was probably the greatest explosion that was ever caused in the verse. And yeah, I know I said 45 jutsus, but I remembered jutsu while I was reading the script, so I put 46 in here. So yeah, subscribe if you haven't done this already, really helps me out. Also like the video if you enjoyed it for the YouTube algorithm. Watch this other cool video right here for more Naruto content, and thank you so much for watching.